If you guys are out there and you're stuck thinking that your only options are spend now or save forever, we're here to tell you there's a third way.
If you're an investor or want to be an investor and you're looking to create passive income that exceeds your monthly expenses, then this is the podcast for you. Here on the Infinite Wealth Podcast, we combine the philosophies of Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad along with Nelson Nash's infinite banking concept.
Welcome to the Infinite Wealth Podcast. I'm Cameron Christiansen, along with our co-host Anthony Faso. And today we're going to ask a simple but powerful question. What if your money could pay you now and still grow for the future? Anthony, we've been taught that you have to choose either to enjoy your money now or lock it away for decades. But guys, we're here to tell you that that is a false choice. There's a better way to do it, and we're going to show you how to do that today.
Awesome. Cameron, you're coming in strong. I can tell you are excited about this one. So I'm going to throw you the first question. Now, why do you think so many people believe that they have to choose between spending today or saving tomorrow?
Yeah, great question, Anthony. The reason that people believe that is because that's what we've been told. That's what I was told the entirety of my kind of adolescence and even early adulthood was that to be successful in life, you've got to delay your gratification, right? You hear it all the time is rice and beans, beans and rice. And if you want to live like nobody tomorrow, you have to live like nobody today. And so it's all about restricting expenses and living on the absolute minimum. And so again, it's delay, delay, delay. But the reality of it is people don't operate that way, right? People want to enjoy life today and they want to feel secure about their future. Both at the same time, they just don't know how. So Anthony, I'm going to throw it back to you is you've talked about this with tons of people. How does that either or thinking affect their financial life?
Okay, it has a big effect, and that effect is going to be negative because what this creates, Cameron, is what we call a scarcity mindset, right? If they spend now, they feel like we're hurting the future. But if we save now, we feel like we are missing out on the joys of life today. And we don't know how long we're going to be here, right? So this leads to frustration and fear. And rarely do we make good decisions based on fear. Now, Cameron, can you go back to remember a time when you realized that that wasn't true, that you actually could do both?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I would go back to the years prior to me learning about infinite banking, this strategy and the financial education I had up until this point was that either or mentality. And so, man, you know what I did, Anthony, is I think back to those times and I was presented with that either or option.
Mhm.
Either I save for today, either I spend today or I save for later. You know what I actually did?
Well,
I didn't do anything,
mm,
right? Is because
mm.
I was proposed two different options and I could not figure out which one was better. And so I didn't do either. And I think that happens with a lot of people many times is we don't know what to do. And so we just kind of freeze up. But I remember when I first realized that money does not have to work that way. It was actually when I started my policy. The
Mhm.
very first policy that I created is I built up some cash value in it. And what I did is I took a loan and I went and bought furniture for my house. I think I've shared that story on this podcast before, but it was literally Jessica and I found out about infinite banking when we were buying our house. I'd just written the biggest check of my life, so I didn't have a lot of money at the time, but I started funding a policy, and over several months, I built up the cash value. And we sat in our brand new house with very little furniture for about 6, 9 months.
Mhm.
And then what I did is I took a policy loan and I went and bought furniture, and then we furnished the house, and then I ended up paying myself back. And that was the first time when I realized, man, you know what? I'm at an advantage. I am operating more efficiently than my peers. And that was the first time that I realized that this is really how money works. So if
And,
you guys
and,
are, go ahead.
Cameron, I'm sorry, I wanted to give you a follow-up question on that.
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't think you shared that on the podcast before, or if you did, is probably the times where I'm not really paying attention to what you're saying. But um, how did that make you? Like, how did that make you feel? Like you've been delaying, you've been probably sitting on patio furniture like we did. Our first kitchen table was a outdoor patio table. But then you really had the ability to be able to enjoy the things now, but through the policy loan. But did you feel guilty doing so?
I didn't feel guilty at all. The
Exactly.
realization that I had when I got to the end of it was, man, you know what? I was going to spend that money anyways. My other alternative would have been to take my cash, right, and go buy furniture and then just slowly replace my reserves, and I would have gotten back to zero. The third option that was available to me was actually to go put it on a credit card, which is probably what I would have done, right? I would have put it on a credit card. I would have paid the 14 to 20% over however many months it took me to pay that back. But then with infinite banking, man, I fund my policy. I take a loan against it. The cash value is still growing and earning. And so there was no guilt associated with it. In fact, like I told you, man, I felt like I was a little bit ahead of the class, right? Is I was operating more efficiently financially than my peers were. And so that I was excited about.
You know,
So go
Cameron, I'm
ahead. Yeah.
sorry to interrupt again, but
Yeah.
I think that not feeling guilty is a huge advantage of the infinite banking concept. And I know you answered this question, but I'm going to answer the same question because the way you answered it was very similar to when I first started my CPA firm. Uh, to be honest, I incurred some debt because I really started that with zero clients, but then I had debt, but then I also knew I needed to save for retirement. This was before I knew about infinite banking, and I really didn't want to lock up that money until I'm in my 60s because I have my own business. I may need it tomorrow. So you want to know what I did, Cameron?
What'd you do?
Nothing. I didn't pay down the debt, and then I didn't save for retirement, and then the money just walked away. I made it walk away. I spent it, but the problem is I didn't know what to do, so I didn't have a plan or a purpose. So I ended up spending money when I shouldn't.
We don't spend a lot of time thinking or talking about this topic that we're talking about right now is right is I think a lot of young adults when they're first getting started is they have debt and then they've got some cash. And if you were to sit down with them, I would say a large majority of them are in that same exact situation, Anthony, right? Is they're sitting on some cash, they're sitting on some debt. They don't want to make a move in either direction, right? Because they're uncertain about what to do. And so one of the things that I wrote down here was that not only did I not feel guilty, being in that position actually made me feel like I made better decisions and I was able to move quicker financially. And so, man, right, that was the beginning of my IBC journey way back when.
Awesome.
So, if you guys are out there and you're stuck thinking that your only options are spend now or save forever, we're here to tell you there's a third way and it's changing everything. This is what we've been alluding to. So, Anthony, let's get practical, right? What does it actually mean when we say your money can pay you now and later?
This is one of the key advantages of the infinite banking because with infinite banking, we store money in a policy and that money continues to grow. And then at the same time, we have the option to leverage against it to finance an asset. And now the money is growing inside your policy and your asset is growing as well. So you have your money working in multiple places, right? When most people think if you use your money, you lose future growth. Now, Cameron, with infinite banking, why is this not still the case?
Yeah, great question. And the answer to that question is because you're borrowing against your policy. So again, we've alluded this big picture, but in detail, here it is our process is you're building cash value inside of a policy. And to be honest with you listeners, is there's two ways that you can access cash value in a policy. One is you can reach in and you can take that money out. That's called a surrender. But the most efficient way to do this is actually to borrow against the cash value. And when you do that, it's just like it sounds, right? You've got cash value in here and you're going to take a loan against it. Your money never leaves the interest bearing account that's sitting inside the insurance company. And so you're never reducing your own account. It just sits there and continues to grow year after year. So think about this. What would you guys do if you had a pool of money that kept growing even after you accessed it?
Mm,
Right? You don't have to sacrifice lifestyle or security. You guys just need a system that works a little bit differently, and that's what we're here to guide you guys into today.
Well done, Cameron. Now, Cameron, do you mind sharing like a real world example of someone doing this?
Yeah, the conversation I had today. This is a client. Anthony knows this client. He just posted in our community about how I helped him set up his policy just recently. And he called me up. He ended up on my calendar and he said, "Hey, I've got some questions on how to proceed from here." And there are no names, but very interesting. What he was doing is he was actually had the opportunity to move forward with in vitro fertilization for his wife. And so he was looking at paying, let's call it 10,000, right? Typically it's probably 25 to 30, but he had an opportunity to pay around nine. And so he had about 10,000 that he was going to pay for in vitro fertilization. If you would have fast forwarded a year ago, right? He has cash
Mhm.
sitting in a checking account, savings account, and he would have just wrote that check for 9,000 and it would have been gone. And I said that would be an option that most people would do. And so we talked about that and I said, but the best option for you at this point is to take that money in checking and savings. We're going to go pay our payment, our PUA payment for our policy and create 9,000 of cash value in your policy. And then 30 days later, we're going to go take a loan against that cash value and we're going to go pay for the in vitro fertilization. And then what we talked about was a loan repayment. And he said, well, I don't know how to structure that. And I said, well, let's talk about this is let's go to the other option, right? You just took 9,000 out of your checking account, savings account. The very next month after you paid that in vitro fertilization, you would have been working towards paying or replacing that 9,000 in savings.
Mhm.
Right? He goes, "Yeah, absolutely." He says, "Okay." I said, "It's no different here." So now what we're going to do is we're going to take the money to pay for IVF from your policy. And now the very next month is we're going to work towards replacing those dollars, but now it's just going to be back inside of our policy. And so
Mm.
that was a real world example of showing this client exactly how he can get that policy working for him. And I told him, hey, this policy is a long-term play. We're going to be building cash value. We're going to repaying it back, and you're going to see this growth over the long term, and it'll be beneficial for you. So, right, once we build this policy, now we're going to have money working for us in two places: not only the policy, but also the other investments or opportunities that lie outside of it.
That's a great story, Cameron, and a great example. Oftentimes, we do focus a lot of using the policy to buy assets, which is great, but sometimes we need to do it to eh, what we say finance liabilities, or
Yeah,
sometimes family emergencies come up. And that's one of the advantages. Oftentimes people have money tied up in their IRA or 401k, and then they don't have access to it when they need it. But here's an example where you have that access to do whatever you think is best, whatever is best for your family. Now, Cameron, let's shift gears here a little bit. Let's talk about how we actually do this. Can you walk us through if someone actually wants to use their IBC to create this kind of flexibility?
yeah. Great question. First step is if you guys have listened to our podcast, you know that we are big on education.
Hmm.
And so that's really going to be step one. The first thing that you should be doing really is plugging into the resources that we have and watching some of the content that we have out there around the space and getting familiar with the strategy that we're discussing here. So it always starts with education. Step number two is once you feel like you've got enough education to move forward, the second thing that we're going to do is fund a policy, and that policy is going to be specific to you, right? There's a whole bunch of different ways that we can fund a policy, different companies, different designs, what have you, right? But you want to work with somebody that's an IBC practitioner that has experience in this space. And so they're going to fund a policy specific to you. Step three is we're going to borrow against the policy to turn around and typically, like we just talked about, is we're going to recommend that you're going to go buy assets with it, right? And you're going to keep repeating that cycle. Anthony
Yeah.
loves to make fun of me and says that we're going to rinse and repeat that three-step process, but that's how you get money
Great.
working for you, right? Is you're going to educate yourself, we're going to fund a policy, we're going to take a loan against it, and we're going to go buy a cash flowing and hopefully appreciating assets with it. Anthony. All right, so I've not get you. What kinds of things have you seen clients use their policies for?
Well, we've talked a lot about them, or really it's a down payment on real estate, buying a business, um, or buying more of a traditional asset. But I want to talk about some other things that might be a little bit outside the box, where we've seen people, particularly when times are tough, particularly in a different industry. We saw a client who he was in the he had some pizza shops, and he had a franchise, but there was another franchise that was struggling, and the assets were on sale. So what this guy did is he was able to take a policy loan and be able to buy equipment for his next business, but he was able to buy it for 25 cents on the dollar. Also, we've seen people where in their business they're on that edge where maybe they should hire another position, whether that's marketing or an assistant, but they don't quite have that income to justify it. But they know once they have that person in place, it's going to allow them to create even more money. So one thing we've done is we've taken a policy loan, and they've used that to pay payroll for that person. That frees them up from doing stuff that isn't as productive or their best skill set, that allows them to maximize their gifts and to grow their business, right? So we step back. Imagine using your money where we can live well now and still knowing that it's growing behind the scenes. That's what this is what IBC offers. It's not magic. It's just math and strategy.
And I love the two examples you gave, right? Is these were focused around business opportunities. And if you guys have listened to our podcast, we often talk about a lot of real estate. But if you sit down and talk to Anthony and I, man, most of the time we're talking about business opportunities. That being your first and best option is investing back into yourself. So great analogy there. The takeaway that I heard is that you don't really need to wait, right? Is you can start using your money differently today. So if someone's out there thinking and listening, I want that kind of flexibility. What's the first step, Anthony?
Well, I think the first thing is really we need to determine is infinite banking for you, right? It is not for everybody, and a lot of that's going to determine on what you're trying to accomplish and some of your skill sets, right? So I would say the first step, Cameron, is to schedule a call with us. We're currently allowing the discovery calls, no cost or obligation, where you can talk to Cameron or I, ask us some questions, and we're going to ask you some questions as well, and really to see if IBC is a fit for you. And then if it is, then we start the education process, because we want you to know the good stuff about IBC, but we also want you to know the not so good stuff, because there's pros and cons to doing everything. IBC is no exception. And that's part of what we accomplish in our education process, is showing you the pros and cons of infinite banking. Then we design a policy for you that fits into your finances and your goals. And then the fun part gets to be is, now that we have this policy, what are some things we can do to help you implement it? And so we can share some ideas on how to leverage that policy to help you achieve your goals. You know, but here's the thing, you don't need to pick between now or later. You can use your dollars to buy assets and create passive income. Right? That's what the infinite banking unlocks.
All right. So if you guys are out there, you do want to book a call, let us show you how to build a system where your money does both, pays you today and secures your future. There'll be a link in the show notes.
Now, this is about more than just making money. This is about making your money work for you, not only now, but also later.
Yep. Thanks for tuning, guys. If this resonated, share the episode, leave a review, and subscribe so you don't miss what's next. We're here to help you build infinite wealth.
Go make a fantastic day.
Take care.
If you like this video, I know you're like this one. And if you want to learn how investors use infinite banking to increase their returns and lower their taxes, check this out. And if you have some questions and want to see if infinite banking is for you, hop on a discovery call with us. Link for that will be in the description.